everyone. Welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way, and today I have a little project for you. I'm going to show you how to take a structure and put it in the setting of trees and a stream. You can do this with any of the little structures that we have. This is the cabin that I'm using. This is called the Cottage by the Beach. And it's actually, the image on here shows it as a little cottage by the ocean. But this is so versatile, as are all of our little structure images. They're all really versatile, so you can change the setting really easily. So I'm going to show you that today. So we're going to use this little structure here. We're also going to use one of the images from the tree set. We're going to use this pine tree. So we're going to put that into the little scene by the lake. And we're also going to need, as usual, the images from the flowers and foliage set. So in the foliage set, we need to use the small foliage this time. So we're going to use the small leaf foliage that's used for backgrounds and the tiny little grass. So just these two images. And then in the flowers, we're just going to use these tiny little dots. This one right here. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I did was stamp the image onto the watercolor paper. So I used the sepia, and that is the number 45, the antique color. So I inked the image and I stamped it onto the watercolor paper. So I'm just going to start out by dipping my brush in water. Put this over where you can see it. And I'm going to dip my brush in water and pinch it off. That's always the first step, because we don't want to get too much water. So because this is old and rustic, I'm just going to drag all this color down from the roof and get this side in here. This is the shady side, so this could be really, really dark. Drag this down here like this. Under here, this would be really dark. Underneath this doorway, this is going to be really dark in here. Underneath here. And now let's add a little more color to the roof. Remember, the highlight is at the top, so the sun is always directly overhead. So we want to remember to leave those white areas. It's really important to do that, even on this little roof. Just leave those little white areas. It's going to make the roof look way more three-dimensional. Okay? We have that finished. Let's take a little of this color. So what I'm doing is I've taken the 45 sepia and I've put it onto my palette. I've also taken a little of this number 6 brown, and I put some of this color on here as well. I've got the number 86 blue violet and the number 17 steel blue. So I've got 4 colors on my palette that I'm going to take from. So I'm going to take a little of this brown and mix it into the sepia. And I'm going to brush a little of this color onto the door. It's just a little warmer color. Rustic. And then I'm going to brush a little bit onto the top of this cabin. Try not to color everything in solid. Start with the darkest area and sort of work your way over. This is going to be darkest over here. And just add a little of this color. You can go back into the door here because this underneath is going to be really dark. We can now take some of this blue because we've got lots of trees and foliage around this little cabin, so we can really darken in this side. A shadow is going to be blue or purple, so we want to make sure we really show that. Let's add some color now into the windows. Same color. A little interest in the windows. Just brush on these little panes. Don't be exact about this. If they're not perfect squares, don't worry about that at all. We're just adding a little detail now. Okay, so now I'm going to drag some of this color down onto the front. The little cabin is really not a color. It's sort of a bunch of peeling paint, so we want to make it look really rustic, so we can just pull some of this color out of the windows. See, just like so. Take your fine tip now. I use the sepia, but you can use the brown too, and just draw in some of these boards. Don't worry if this isn't perfect. Darken in the little door handle. And in here, this is going to be really dark. So don't be afraid to use your fine tip and really get in these dark areas. It's going to add a lot of dimension when you go from that dark, dark to light, light. And that's what we're going for. We want things to look three-dimensional. So I use my fine tip a lot. And really, the more that you use this technique, the more comfortable you're going to be doing that. You just get braver and braver, I promise. Okay, so we've got our little cabin. It's changed a ton since when we first stamped it. So now we're ready to add the foliage around it. And now is the time that you can change the background to whatever you want it to be. And I love this scene with the pine trees and the foliage all around. It feels like home to me. And I just think it looks really, really neat. So I'm going to add some of this color now to the outside. So I'm dragging a little of this color to the outside. And we're going to start by stamping in the small foliage. And that's this little image right here. So it's this one with the tiny leaves. So we're going to take that and we're going to put it onto the block. Attach it like this. And we're only going to ink part of it. So either side, whichever side you're most comfortable with, just ink half of the stamp. So if you can see that, I've only inked a portion. And remember, we're going to stamp and ink. So we're going to stamp it, we're going to ink it and stamp it a bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to ink it again and repeat that process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again. And this always looks like a mess, but I promise you it will all come together. Let's add just a little bit more here. There we go. So now we're going to dip our brush and we're going to just dab. And really focus on getting the color where the lines are, not in the empty white spaces. So don't do a circular motion. Don't do a brush stroke. You're just going to dab all these little spaces and leave the white where it's white. And don't be afraid to blend it into the color of the cabin. That's okay. And you're going to get your background in here. It's going to look like this little cabin is all surrounded by lush foliage. This is a pine green, by the way, but you can use any green. So just dab, jump your brush, bounce your brush. It's probably a better way to say it. And just get all this foliage softened. That's what we're doing. We're just softening the lines. And we're showing the idea of things, remember. So blend this all together here. You can see that's starting to take shape. You can drag this color out even more so and get these areas really soft so that it looks like this is all just fading out. That's up to you. Okay, we've got that foliage in now. So let's add our trees in the background. So I'm going to put my little fir tree on the block. And I don't need the whole tree. So I do this a lot. We use a lot of bits and pieces of things. So we're just going to ink part of it. You can see here, I just inked part of this tree because I really only need the tops. So I'm going to stamp it 1, 2, 3, maybe a couple more times. Dip my brush. And add water. And when you add the water, it's going to change the shape so that these trees all look different. There they are in the background. And then let's go back to the foliage again. Clean it off a little bit. And we're going to ink it with the blue. So this is the number 86, African Violet. And we're going to add this little blue flower sort of background. This is the same foliage, and I'm just adding another layer, and then just dab it with your brush. This is going to give even more dimension back in the background. Look like there's a whole grove of flowers growing back here. And again, just a very soft touch. You're just dabbing. Okay, so let's add the water. So we're going to take the water from the palette, and we're just going to take a little of this blue. So very light, plenty of water, and you're just going to stroke this in. Just use your brush. Keep your hand straight. This is where you can decide if you want a stream, if you want this to be on the edge of a lake. But you just rough this in. Don't stress out about this at all. Just get a little patch of blue in there. There we go. And as soon as that's dry, we're going to come in with our grass and we're going to bring this all together. So I'm using the tiny grass from the foliage set. So that's the teeny one. I'll show you which one it is. It's this one right here. This one is so versatile. It's just in everything. So we're going to come along the side of the water. And we're just going to stamp this a bunch of times because the grass can go any direction. So we're just going to kind of follow this water line. Put some grass back in here so we have a horizon. Same over here. And remember to walk the grass under here in front of the little cabin. There you go. And now we just pull the color out. Remember, the grass is the only time we really have a brush stroke where we're actually pulling the color up and out. Just drag this color up. So cute. Even these little scenes that look like they take so much time, they're really quick and easy. We can always come back to the same stamps. That makes it easier too because you get really good at stamping these images. Drag the shadow out here. And come back in along the lines here with your blue. This takes a little bit of practice, but it's not hard. A little darker color here on the side. Remember, this is in the shadow, so we can make this really dark. You could brush in a little sky. Use the same blue. And just brush this in. You can always add more color to lighten it, or add more water. There we go. Let's add our little detail. So our tiny little flowers. So we're going to put these on here. These are from the flower set, so the little tiny dots, this one right here. And we're just going to ink the end. Either end, whichever end is easier for you to use. And remember, ink it once and stamp it a bunch, at least 5. And I'm using a dark color because I am stamping over the green. And then up to you if you want to add water to these. They're so tiny that sometimes I don't even add much water to them. It's kind of nice to see that definite image. I would get these windows a little darker. Up in here as well. Always a few last minute details. And there we go, our little cabin at the lake. So fun. Make sure you sign. It's going to be different every time. And thank you for watching.